right, hold up. All right, we're live. We're live.
We're all live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? How are you doing this great evening? It is let's see, it is the 21st of the September and 2016, the current year. And we're gonna be in another guest here. Yes.
And I just think if if you fight the fire wins. Yeah.
Yes. We're going to be talking about, everything is going crazy right now. How everything seems to be going a little bit crazy in this world. So what are we getting to right now? Because there's a lot of stuff right here that is we need to talk about. Like, first off, you know, this previous weekend, almost everything just went crazy. First off, you had um, the whole bombings and such. And
I'm kind of surprised. I'm honestly kind of surprised it took this long to get there.
The insanity or what?
No. I mean, so like post 9/11, right? We get 9/11, boom, fucking towers fall, fucking, as we know now, thanks to the investigative reporting, people like what? It's the same one you had. I got two of them. Speak loud.
Where are they?
They're in the bottom shelf of the fridge. Can you grab me a pin or two?
I will grab you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we had 9/11, right? So we have 9/11, and it's all like shit's popping off and going crazy. Holy shit! Oh my god, what are we gonna do? We're all gonna die. Oh yeah, except like everyone was just waiting for some big fucking crazy fucking another like massive, overly complicated plot. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what the fuck? I mean, any incident or even the hint of terrorism cripples this country. It doesn't anymore because we're just like we're just jaded and in it now.
Well, pretty much. So
Hold on a quick sec. I'll be right back.
Okay. I mean, let's really be honest here. In a sense of that, continue the conversation, such with the people in the audience. The one thing is that we had like other crazy things happen. We had other insanity.
Yeah, no. Hold up. Yeah, no. I want to finish that point though. So, like, here's the thing: we were all waiting on this big, complicated 9/11-esque terror attack, which requires all these moving parts and hijacking planes and shit, right? Well, what we got right now is the kind of shit you'd see in places like fucking Tel Aviv for decades, right? Even when terrorists fuck up Europe, even before this whole wave of the shit was coming. What do? I mean, like, you don't have to fly a plane into a building. You just drop a homemade bomb into a fucking trash receptacle in a public area and blow it up. All of a sudden, once it's known to be a terrorist attack, everyone's looking over their shoulder. But the thing is we're like jaded now because we just expect this shit now because it's happening in Europe all the goddamn time. When it happens here, honestly, were you genuinely fucking shocked and surprised when you heard that happen?
Well, a little bit, actually. I think that, a lot of people, maybe it's just my naivete, but it's like, it's like there's a lot of other crazy stuff that's going on right now. We'll get to that later. And then when you hear this, I was like a little surprised, but most of it was like, what took it so long to get here? And I hate to be that, I hate to say that because, it's like, man, what's going on? And we know what's going on. We know this is a certain belief that's going on that says, that is doing this huge structure right now that has a very, the people who do this, and majority are like, who are Muslim, who are, doing these attacks. And funny enough, I just saw this little article. If I can find it, it's let me see if I can find it. It actually says something about the whole global war on terror and how much money we spent on it. We have spent over, I believe, let's see, where is it? I think we spent over $5 trillion.
Yeah, we spent oodles and oodles of money, and most of that's actually like what we've spent so far is just a portion of what we're going to spend because we have a lot of cost plus fee
here it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we'll end up totally spending like at the end of the day is going to dwarf any figures we've got now.
Oh yeah, but yeah, here's the crazy thing. We have not only spent over 6,000, about $5 trillion, but terrorism has gone up 65. It was like 6,500%.
Yeah, but you got to keep in mind though, when we do things such as like foreign intelligence ops against nations that we in this modern day and age we say that they're sponsoring terrorists. It's no different than when we were going after heads of state in Central and South America saying that they were sponsoring the narco trade, right? What foreign policy boils down to the U.S. and this is why Hillary Clinton's a big fucking problem, is because conventional foreign policy in the U.S. it's not so much about actually solving the problems you're faced with. It's more about just securing your resources and your interests by just sort of manipulating the politics and military might in given regions. And right now, we're again sticking our dick into the Middle East, and we've been sticking our dick there for a while. But now it's festering, and like the VD and the gonorrhea that we left behind, well, it's turned into ISIS now. Because they're like, hey, holy shit, a bunch of military training and a bunch of weapons to overthrow a dictator that the U.S. doesn't like, or we're backing a particular brand of whatever their ideology might be. And then when we're done and we get what we want, we're pretty much like, okay, well, have fun. We're going to leave all the weapons we brought here behind because it just costs too much to bring them back. And you get fucking batshit crazy, militant, religiously motivated armies forming up in the Middle East. And it's the same thing that happened. What ISIS right now is what the Mujahideen were and became vis-a-vis Al Qaeda.
Yeah,
Al Qaeda was stemmed from the Mujahideen in Afghanistan when we were using them as proxies to fight the Soviets. And then ISIS out of Libya came largely from Clinton's own State Department and working with the Department of Defense to arm Syrian militants who were tribal Islamists out in the fucking backcountry of Libya so that they could fight the Gaddafi forces because we didn't like Gaddafi anymore.
yeah. It always at the end of the day, it is it's always been this way. You had we set up the mercenaries to do the deal, to do the horrible deal, and now the mercenaries are like, oh, we're going to take over the countries and such, and it's become.
No. Those weren't mercenaries. I mean,
But
the
I'm making
mercenaries
out,
that we've.
but I'm trying to say, just it seems like
you're talking. You mean like proxies?
Proxies, yeah, proxies.
We armed them. Yeah, we armed militias and sent them to fight, and they fought and they won, and now they get their way, and now they're still fighting because they want more.
Yeah, and it just continues to go, and it just continues. There's no end to it. In fact,
well, I mean,
and there is going to be an end. I mean, I honestly the best way to do it, and there's a lot of criticism with this deal. I think the Iran deal with President Obama is going to be doing is actually, I think, more of a positive to end the culture that is in the Middle East of this destructive, aggressive, and just backwards culture there. Because
wait, hang on. For one thing, you're talking about like what, the Iran nuclear deal?
Yeah, because I don't know. You can't bomb. You can't bomb people out of a cult. We've been doing that for how many years now? You can't bomb them out. You can't bomb them to change their culture because they just like, fine, we'll just wait until people.
But we changed Iran's culture in the 50s.
Yeah, but this is a culture that, because I know back in the 50s, 60s, and such, the culture was more of a peaceful and more of a more, how you say, progressive culture. This is more of a violent, very violent culture that is not going to be you're not going to take down a violent culture, a really violent and horrible culture with just bombs and bullets. Because again, at the end of the day, they're going to say, "Hey, you know what? We're going to, we will wait and we will continue to do it." Because again, if you take down ISIS, there's going to be another one show up. There's going to be another one and another one and another one until you handle the culture, not just governments. You could just take on the governments.
No. I think you're a little off. Because the culture itself, honestly, I don't really necessarily even believe that ISIS is the product of culture. I think ISIS is the product of like a militarization of what is already a vulnerable ideology. I mean, those who say that, like Muslims who say, like the non-violent Muslims who say that Islam is a religion of peace, they're not just talking shit. I mean, we can call them wrong, and we can do so rightly all we like. But they genuinely believe that. And to them, that's what Islam is for them. It's like just their fucking silly ass religion. But when it's militarized through things like ISIS, a lot of that stems from the fact that, where did ISIS really spawn? More than just saying the Middle East, you also have to look at the fact that it always spawned in countries with what had repressive governments, which were propped up mainly by Western powers for the longest time. They were suddenly thrown off, and then what remained was basically the only thing outside of the state that people could culturally identify within that place. This is what happened in Iran. We ousted Mohammad Mossadegh, helped reinstate Shah Reza Pahlavi. Reza Pahlavi was he was the tin pot dictator of all nightmares with his bullshit, living extravagantly, starving the country, just being awful. And he was overthrown by the Islamic Revolution because Islam is the only thing. It's so insistent in a culture and in a life that outside of a strong-armed state, when you have a people who are pushed to the brinks of things, religion is just what they turn to because it's an easy superstition that you can grapple onto, and it tells you everything will be okay. And then it also fuels you to do things. So yeah, just like the Islamic Revolution in Iran, the evolution of a thing like ISIS, it's not so much that it's necessarily cultural as much as it is that they've never managed to have and maintain a stable democratic government that works in the interests of the people. It's either a foreign puppet government, as Gaddafi started out and as Chad was, and Libya and Chad were constantly at war because they were both client states of the U.S. and the USSR. When Gaddafi fell, one of his former senior military administrators, who he sent to go into war he sent into Chad to go help topple the Chadian regime, he failed and was captured. But he was almost immediately then he immediately switched sides, founded a well-funded overnight anti-Gaddafi militia, right? Off the ground overnight, effectively. And when his efforts there failed, he relocated to the U.S., where he lived in Virginia, about 20 miles away from fucking Langley. And then at the fucking height of the Libyan revolution, he goes back to lead ground forces and then basically becomes a senior military minister. And at one point tries to establish just to pull off a coup so that he can establish martial law so that he can get the Islamist militias and tribal factions under control. And he failed at that. But I mean, this has been a long, drawn-out chess game.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing with ISIS exists because, in the absence of an identifiable culture that's not constantly under assault from foreign powers, and one that's not just being ruled under the thumb of some fascist dictator, the only thing they have to fall back on for cultural cohesion is religion. And so you get these religious militant nut jobs who just keep getting hypercharged with every fucking crazy batshit thing they do.
Yeah, it's always this hyper realization and quite but honestly though, it does the one thing I think most people, I think you would agree though, when you look at that culture, there's a lot of, I think most of it is lack of education though, lack of education, lack of actually real structure, lack of real paying actually careers and jobs down there for the most part. And
you offer any culture of people, regardless of their religion, economic prosperity, the ability to live and raise children in security and safety, and provide for them as you need to without worrying about it. Without worrying too much about, is there going to be an economy tomorrow? Am I going to get blown up? All that shit. You give people peace and prosperity. It doesn't matter what their religion is. The peace and prosperity becomes the real cultural ethos.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That's what we've had here in the U.S. We're a violent people here in the U.S., but truth be told, we like peace. And, we like peace and prosperity. We just like to be able to fuck off, do our work, make our money, do our thing. Everybody leave everybody alone unless you're hanging out.
Yeah, and but you, like I said before, you can't bomb a peaceful culture into a violent culture, or a poverty. Huh?
You can't actually bomb a peaceful culture into a violent one. You can't bomb a violent culture into being peaceful. No.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. But then you get the question of if you're going to try and change things. I mean, is nation building the way to go?
We failed at that in Iraq. I mean, just look at that. who failed Iraq and the aftermath of it. I mean, at this point, a 3-state solution probably would be the best type of solution for that. Then again, drawing up places, drawing
No,
lines around a map.
We're beyond. Well, we're also beyond the 3-state solution at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, right now the biggest problem facing the entirety of the Middle East right now is actually ISIS.
Yeah.
And they are the only way to deal with ISIS is to kill them, is to kill all of them.
Yeah.
Or to kill enough of them where the rest just quit.
But yeah, and then you have other issues as well. Like, say, for example, Turkey. They just had their whole failed coup, which a lot of people are saying it wasn't really a coup, but I'll leave that to the whole insanity of Alex Jones and all that stuff. But
why? This is just take a moment though. You're how old are you?
31.
31. Yeah, I'm 33. So you probably remember though. What, like maybe 10 years ago, when we all knew who Alex Jones was, but he was a fucking crackpot.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, he still is a crackpot, but I mean that's the thing. Everyone knew Alex Jones was a crackpot, and now people are actually regarding him as serious news.
Well, because I mean, the media has screwed up on a tremendous scale. I mean, we're going to talk about this later. Well, maybe we'll just segue into that. I mean, you have what's going on with Trump and Hillary. I mean, Hillary's health. I mean, they were saying, "Oh, Hillary is just fine," and then next, she had that little fainting episode, and then they're saying, "Oh, it was a heat stroke." No, it's pneumonia. Then it's this. Then the other.
Yeah. No, I mean it's I remember one of the last vestiges of popular media that I could trust in terms of news media was NPR, right?
Mm.
And with NPR, even I caught about a month ago, they were asking in a roundtable, honestly, between media people and journalists, is it at a time when someone like Donald Trump could become president, do journalistic ethics permit almost activism? Should they be using their platforms to try and prevent that? And I couldn't help but think, no, that's not your job. I mean, if there are facts that would, if there are actual facts to report, you report those facts, but you don't do so for the agenda of making the outcome. And yeah, I mean, I'm no fan of Trump. Trump is terrible. He really is. He's gonna. I mean, he's a hilarious candidate, but he'll make I'm very certain he'll make a terrible president. At the same time, Hillary Clinton would be a terrible president. And
yeah, it is one of the worst elections. And then, when you see what happened, and I think Paul Joseph Watson, who was with Infowars and such with Alex Jones, pointed the stuff out with Hillary, and they're like, oh, he's a conspiracy, and then started with the whole alt-right craziness and
yeah.
And
Now
Pepe.
Normies know what Pepe is.
I'm just I feel like we're just being I'm waiting for someone to say, hey, it was all just one big prank or something, one big rib, and just
no. Yeah, but you see,
here's the real candidates here, man.
How serious people get though about stupid shit. How seriously they'll act while being fucking retarded. We see this on the internet. This is just the internet's like a reflection of our very short-term future culture. So the kind of shit we see when we're seeing insipid shit on the internet, it started with SJWs. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
SJWs, yeah, what, 5 or 10 years ago, people would be like, oh, it's just fucking weirdos on Reddit. Well, guess what? Those weirdos on Reddit are now out in the real world and other people are agreeing with them. And the alt-right's very much the same thing. But it's also the fact that meme culture like Pepe, the very fact that memes are now being seen as hate speech by some people. That's simply because people are speaking with memes effectively in the real world. It's not just weird cultural. It's not niche culture internet shit.
Yeah, that's to me. I'm like, it's insane. And when I look at what's going on right now, and then you have this election when you have the Hillary sub. The way they prove it is she opens a jar of pickles, and I'm like, okay. That doesn't answer any questions, but yay, that's nice. Over at what was it? Who was that? Jimmy Kimmel, over at Jimmy Kimmel, and then I think that was previously before Hillary had that fading spell, and then all the crazy stuff there, and then you have Trump a week later going on Jimmy Kimmel, and him have Jimmy Kimmel rubbing his hair and everything else, and oh my gosh, the regressive left went crazy. They are now, it's like Jimmy Kimmel's like a racist, Jimmy Kimmel's this, and like, how could you let the devil himself? I'm like, jeez.
Well, no, they said, they were saying that about Jimmy Fallon.
I'm like, how
Jimmy Fallon humanize Trump? It's like, yeah, guess what? I mean, like, you know what, Trump, like, you may think Trump is a shitty human being. He's still actually just a human being. He's not. Yes. He's not literally Hitler.
Yeah, he's
not literally Satan.
Yeah, got Trencher in the chat. What's up, man? And he makes some good points, and he said the country, it's like in this country, the agenda shared by the journalists and politicians led to the rise of Trump, and the left turned away from workers' rights. The middle class rebelled and voted for the only ones who talked against the left and such. Because it does seem there's a lot of people who are right there in the left felt betrayed. They feel like, I
might almost say that in one of Chris Hedges' few moments of self-awareness, Death of the Liberal Class, where basically he was, he said it in interviews too, that the political left in this country is just, it has completely lost its way. It's gotten so mired up in bullshit feel-good identity politics that it's missed the real issues. Yeah, so they've abandoned labor rights, they've abandoned class issues, they've abandoned public services. Their concern now is like respect and representation. And then they try and make enough noise to make it look like they're against big banks, that they're against corporate, hegemonies, and that they're against multinationals pulling the strings in government. But they're not. They let all that happen because they know that they can just win votes as long as they just play the modern progressive game. And the right has been going through its own fucking tumult and turmoil as well. I mean, it really started to fall under Bush because neoconservatism proved to be such a fucking disaster that no one wanted to be a part of it. The libertarian right had a real resurgence. And now what we're seeing in response to the regressive left is the alt-right. So people are like, you're a racist. So a lot of these people who might be racists might just be hardline ethnocentric nationalist conservatives. And if you're going to say those are the same thing, maybe you're right. But yeah, they're rising up in their own. So it basically, like, the whole game board's just been shaken up now. No one's really exactly sure what's going on.
And, and then you have articles, which I shared to you, and I'll put the links in the description, the articles in the description is, Christian Gabriel from the Huffington Post, because, when you think great journalism, you think the Huffington Post. Oh, this is a blog. It's like, if you don't vote Democrat this November, then fuck you. But that's a great headline. And when I read through this, and the best thing here is right here, this paragraph, it says, right now only two people have any chance to are Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Donald fucking Trump. This isn't a fucking joke. This is real. And y'all have the audacity to sit back and say, I won't vote, or I'll vote for Trump, or I'll vote for blank so-and-so. Who isn't going to be president, but it's cute you voted for that one time because of your principle. It's bullshit. And Frank, how fucking dare you? I'm like, seriously? And it gets better. It says 49 people were killed in a gay nightclub in Pulse in Atlanta, Florida this weekend. 49. I'm like, seriously, first off, he's probably talking about, I think this is an old article, but yeah, I'm like, really? You're going to basically transplant this, like 49 people killed in the gay club, and the horrible thing, and then you have the singer who has a voice was killed by a crazy person, and try to equate that to a Trump voter or a Jill Stein voter or a Gary Johnson supporter, which
No,
I am.
it's a fucking he's just a hysterical fucking shrieking queen is all he is.
And
This
it's even
blogger has nothing to offer, and more than that, though, too, people like him. There are a lot of them out there. They just don't really respect their franchise. I
yeah,
didn't vote in 2000. Yeah, I didn't vote in 2012 because everyone's like, "Oh, you're voting against Romney, right?" Like, no, I'm like, I don't necessarily hate Obama's presidency. I think it's been shit. I'm not like I don't loathe it like I did the Bush era, but I couldn't bring myself to actually vote for Barack Obama. I didn't want Romney to be president, but I couldn't. I'm like, drone strikes, you haven't closed Gitmo, fucking surveillance state's still getting bigger. The economy is still catering exclusively to the wealthy. And shit's just, it's not like you haven't, like, the only things you fought for were fucking showcase victories, and that's it. Even the ACA went to shit. So, no, I couldn't bring myself to vote for Obama. Now, I am like dedicatedly, devoutly against either a Trump or a Clinton presidency, and I'm not going to actually put my name down on a matter of record, for posterity, saying I believe that Hillary Clinton or that Donald Trump, either one of these people, I will not stand in history as having said I believe either of these people should be president.
No, in fact, here's my thing. I voted for Gary Johnson in 2012 election. Then again, I live in Maryland. I live in a blue state, so my vote really doesn't actually. Well, to say that, I mean, my vote really doesn't matter in the circumstance of presidency. But even worse, you see it in like when you look at shows like Real Time with Bill Maher, he's pushing the same dogma. This you have to vote Hillary.
Bill
And
Maher's a fucking Democrat, and he always been a Democrat.
yeah, and it's like like you're not getting the steak, you're getting the. I'm like, no. I mean, to me, this is the problem where we are right now. We settle too much in a society.
Well,
we
have
settle.
It's because we live in a partisan society. Now, partisanship isn't just the interplay of parties, but it is itself kind of akin to ideology. It functions in a similar way. It's a group think. It's about go with the herd. Now, partisanship, like if you're a partisan, you can even disagree with your party, but still be a devout member of the party. The party it's lost its relevance, its meaning. The party is supposed to be an avatar for basically conglomerated set of ideals and principles, almost an ideology or an ideology itself. But these parties aren't even that. They're self-serving private entities which really they're like pro football teams. Their only interest is in winning because that's what their job is to do, is to win. And so much of winning is now dependent upon basically kissing the right ass and sucking the right dicks and trading the right horses. So, no, the partisans themselves, they're as bad as the ideologues to me. If somebody genuinely believes that a given political party of any stripe is, a solution to the ills that we face, any society faces, they're delusional. They're out of their minds.
It is. It is. It is. What's wrong with it? It's like again football teams and so on and so forth, and it gets getting more rowdy because you not only have the bombings that will people will link like Trump's going to get more supports and such like that. Then you have the shootings, with the police shootings, and right now you have like rioting that's going on in Charlotte because there was one police shooting involving a person who was just reading a book and getting shot, and then a black man getting shot because it's like waiting for his kid going on the bus and innocent bystander and such. And then you have the riots that happened in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then you have Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was I don't know what's really going on here. In that situation, you had a person who was just walking to the police officer with their hands up, and then she they tased him and she shot him, and and then I'm like, holy crap, this is just a straight up murder. Then you find out he had PCP in the car, and there's someone 911 call talking about this. Like, it's getting just really murky and complicated about this issue. And even if he was on PCP or not, again, I say these people does not deserve to die. And
you're absolutely right. I mean, like, my biggest gripe with Black Lives Matter isn't even how obnoxious the movement is. It's not about their bullshit fucking racism and all their dumb fucking dogma and all that. It's really the fact that they are like the epitome of a spoiled opportunity. It's like watching Occupy Wall Street all over again.
Yeah,
while
and
they could be, while they could be an effective, organized, functioning movement, it's instead just it's just amateur hour fucking sophist fucking bullshit and dogmatic racist crap. It's a load of shit. And the problem is there is a problem with policing in this country. Police work itself, I mean, I studied it for 2 years in school and in college, and it wasn't an advanced education, but the reality is that there's a science to police work. Even when it comes to patrol and police work, like if you're stopping someone, if you're dealing with the public, there's a science to it that does sort of dictate certain norms and behavior patterns that ought to be trained. And instead, the majority of training these days, it goes more towards use of force, and they're getting decked out and dressed like military personnel. And they're being encouraged to be more aggressive because that's what the get tough approach to law enforcement and criminal justice has gotten us. This all started, it was really big in the 60s, even the 50s. It's always been big here in the 20th century. It was get tough law enforcement. Nixon's own plan for the drug war was to have it focused on treatment and to treating addiction and curing addiction. Instead, it became an enforcement thing because enforcement's a sexy issue because, what used to be the sort of garden party picket fence middle America was terrified of the notions of the black criminals just outside of their fucking town border.
And yet, it is the heroin and the meth that's basically destroying them. In fact, I can tell you for hours about, like, say, for example, like here in Maryland, that the heroin epidemic is just really bad. In fact,
I live in New Hampshire, man. We've got it. I think we might be leading the pack right now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like the heroin epidemic. I mean, that's the thing, though, is like the drug war has been a miserable failure, but the drug war has also fueled the growth in militaristic policing, which is what really removed the police entirely from the actual culture of Black America.
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely, they're two separate entities. The biggest problem with police work, if you're trying to actually effectively police a population or a city, is being a part of the city, not just being like something that's separate from the people. And when they start doing things like foot patrols, and when they stopped having police substations, I mean, Anacostia.
Oh yeah, and I know other places. And there's no community outreach. It's always
very tight, simple city. I mean, I'm thinking of DC, but they used to have substations. So all the old timers that I met when I was down there with Acorn back in the day, I mean, I'm supposed to be there talking to them about how organizing in this way will help and save their fucking communities. But I was more interested in listening to what they knew. And what they would always say would be things like, well, for one thing, we need better sanitation and civil service because we know a tree limb will go down on a power line, or it'll just fall in the street, and it'll be 2 weeks before anyone gets here to clean it up. And when it comes to policing, we used to have a police substation here, and we knew the officers who were patrolling. And when shit was going down, we knew them, so we'd talk to them. But then once that started going away, and we got into this, especially in the 90s during the Clinton era when we were getting tough on crime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Another reason why I will never vote for Hillary.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, as we got into that, too, then you get it removed, and then all of a sudden you've just got, like the police will respond to calls and that's it. And they're not police who know the area. Nobody knows anything. So the police are removed, and then it's all snitches get stitches and all that shit. So all of a sudden everyone was living according to criminal law, like the criminal's law, the criminal code. And because, And so, yeah, I mean, like Black Lives Matter could be speaking to this with the amount of attention they can get with their sheer numbers.
Oh yeah, and the one
If,
thing I really am frustrated. You know what the thing is? I think the solution to all of this has been always been proven. In fact, there's I think we have here around where I live, we have local community police. They drive around their cruisers and walk around the beats and such. I think we should have, because actually there are some cases about like private police, and such, going to communities, walking the beats, and doing these type of things. These not private police are actually cheaper. They're more effective. They stop more crimes, exactly. It just like it made the community a lot more safer, and they have more trust with the police instead of this whole, this whole friction of being in this argument, like a standing army, even though they're not really a standing army. They, in fact, people who are in military say they're completely don't know how. They would not last 5 minutes because they don't know the rules of engagement.
yeah, and I mean, it has there's a knock-on effect in the generational scheme too, though. Because when you have, I mean, like the young men who grow up to be fucking corner boys and shit, right? Those guys, if like, I remember this one woman right off. I was right off at MLK Boulevard, actually. It was down in, I can't remember the neighborhood. It was down in Anacostia. And she's telling me how back when she was growing up and they had the foot patrols and all this shit, that, if one of the neighborhood kids was starting to get into some shit and he was starting to do some dirt, like it'd be no problem for, Mrs. Smith down the corner, right, to tell Officer so-and-so this. And he'd find, he'd go and intercept, and they'd use police discretion, because police discretion is like, all right, they've broken the law, but will arresting them do any good? Nobody has to know. And it's crooked policing, technically, but it would be the kind of thing where they would just sort of threaten and be like, listen, I know what you're doing, and if you keep it up, I'm going to arrest you. You're going to go to jail, but worse off, I'm going to tell your mother and tell your father, because they had parents at home. And, it was a middle-class situation, and that's
Yeah.
gone now. That's erased. And
And
Black Lives Matter has failed spectacularly at actually speaking to that truth.
And the one truth that is to me, and what's going on right now, and I probably will be lambasted by this, but I don't care, is like there's no black fathers anymore in the household. In fact, I gotta see the last time I looked at the CDC situation, because let's see, the CDC black with black on black crime, you have, that's number one from 15 to 34. But what about black suicides is, I think that's really very, very high.
That's the thing. I mean, like Black America is genuinely suffering. Poverty, suicide, drug addiction, homicide, crime, unemployment, all of it. And yet, what do we hear? I mean, what do we hear from Black Lives Matter? What do we hear from them?
No.
We hate cops. We want reparations. It's just like Occupy Wall Street. Occupy was this golden moment to actually bring about awareness about corporate corruption of government, and instead it just turned into this like shit show hodgepodge of fucking like self-righteous activists.
So social justice warriors came in and ruined every little inch of it. And that to me is happening with Black Lives Matter. And not only that, it's even worse because you have them rioting their own communities, burning their own stores, and destroying every inch. What business, if you're a businessman, why would you go in that community? In fact, I mean, if you try to build the business up or something, no one wants to build any business up. Because
I saw this macro going around that was like, it was a picture of Martin Luther King leading a march across a bridge, and it shut half the bridge down, and it said, if you're criticizing Black Lives Matter for closing down roadways, how can you justify this or something? And And the truth was, is like I looked at that and I'm like, I've led marches like that myself. I know about those marches. I've marshaled them, and you shut down half of the traffic so that everyone has to be routed around you. And yeah, you create an inconvenience, but you don't try and blockade a highway and shut it down. You do that, and people are like, "Fuck you! I don't give a shit what you stand for." You block off half the thing, and you're like, people drive around it, and they see 5,000, 6,000 people marching in one direction down a major city thoroughfare. Like, you see that kind of thing, you're like, that's a demonstration. What are they about? And then you ask that question, then you find out. And it's about posturing, man. Modern activism has lost. People are always like, oh, everyone's reading rules for radicals and they're turning into this and that. It's like, no, if they're reading rules for radicals, they're reading it wrong. Like, that is, like it or not, it's a handbook on how to do effective activism. And if they're reading that shit, they're reading it wrong. These are the kind of people who would read Brave New World and say, oh, it's just like 1984, man. This is a book where, it's a warning about authoritarian futures, when it's in fact just saying, like, yeah, if you live in a society that you can't stand, your choices are either deal with it or go out and take your chances in the savage lands. Best of luck.
Yeah, and that's one thing. It just there's just like this very grasp of like what's. I mean, it just seems like it's on repeat. Like I said with Black Lives Matter, it's like something horrible happens, then there's riots, and then repeat. It just keeps going, and I'm like, it seems like it's just they're becoming a meme at this point. Talking about memes, that pretty much is. So a black life gets shot, so a black life ends by a cop, and then they come and people start rioting and everything else. It's just like what's happening. It just keeps getting worse and worse. And then you have, I heard like Al Sharpton's going to be going up to, I think, Oklahoma or maybe Charlotte, right?
I don't know. I don't watch the news, dude.
I actually still do, and he's actually. I gotta make sure.
No, it's good on you. You're staying informed. I mean,
I try to. Let's see. He's going to be. Yeah, he's going to be in Tulsa. It's going to be in Oklahoma, and I'm like, maybe it's just me, and I know a lot of people just. I understand what he's trying to do, and I understand he wants to bring, try to be more, awareness of issues, but more often than not, it just seems like it's lining his own pockets.
I'm sure
it's
Jesse
just
Jackson. I met Jesse Jackson one time, and I ain't never met anybody I felt more was like a fucking just straight up politician, just trying to fucking get his name and his face everywhere and get his fucking money in, get his fame and his fucking like every new appearance they make, they can tack another $500 onto a speaking fee. So no, I mean honestly, big media people of like conventional media, I don't trust them. I don't trust Al Sharpton. He's a race baiting son of a bitch. Says Jesse Jackson. He's done the same.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It's really a shame because when I read, I don't know, I need to start reading more up, like say in Malcolm X or like Dr. King. They the media did turn them because they were interesting, but they brought things to light. In fact, Malcolm X, I mean, he was talking stuff not only just about in this country, but also outside the country as well. And
yeah, well, he also showed. I mean, he also showed the the humanist sort of center of. I mean, like, here's the thing. I knock religion. I knock religious people a lot. But, I mean, if somebody's, like, truly dedicated and devout to being as pure and good a person as they can in the name of whatever fucking religion they're doing, fucking more power to you if you're actually trying to do that. And Malcolm X, like, he went to Mecca and he found himself praying alongside Arabs and white people and people of all races, and they were united in Islam, right? And he came back and he was starting to preach messages of fucking unity. And that's when it's theorized that Farrakhan or somebody else had him killed for that. Yeah. It wasn't about supremacy. And the Nation of Islam was kind of, Islam itself is a supremacist religion. The Nation of Islam is a supremacist ideology.
Yeah. And I don't, that's, when I look and see what's, I'm not saying they did or didn't, but it's, it's like it's still the story has still been told, and all the other stuff that's going on with Nation of Islam and Malcolm X, but he made so much good points, especially against, say, the Democratic Party. I remember one speech he said this about the Democratic Party. It's like, you put these Democrats in the office, you put them in the Congress and Senate, and they haven't done one thing for you. They didn't have to do one thing for you, and you know what they say? What did they call? You call yourself like a political chump. You're a political chump. You keep doing this, and basically just said flat out, if you continue voting for Democrats, that means you're a traitor to your race. I'm like, wow. Imagine if he said that. If he was alive, he would say that today. He would be labeled as, I could just see it right now, a coon, an Uncle Tom, and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I can see him, but he wouldn't care. He would not care.
I doubt Martin Luther King, if he saw Black Lives Matter as what it is, would support it, and they'd probably say he's a race traitor coon too.
Oh yeah, yeah, and yeah. So Malcolm X also, Trencher said something right here. Says he criticized leaders above him. That's the one thing you don't do that in a religion for the most part. You don't criticize. But then again, you have people who were, against people who criticize people on top who were religious as well. But
it was a different time then too, though. Well, keep in mind it was a different time then too.
Yeah, and
like to get your voice out at all was an impressive thing. These days we can all just do what we're doing now, just jump on YouTube, and millions of people have the opportunity to hear. It's the entire world, more or less.
It's it's one of my people on Facebook. It's basically YouTube is basically it's amateur hour, and
no, hold on. I like to say it this way: YouTube is the dream of cable access realized fully.
Oh yes, it is. And,
yeah.
And one thing I love, I would just imagine Malcolm X. I think he would be still, he would still be going against the Democratic Party. I bet he would be more, because he would not. I don't think he would vote for Hillary. I don't think he would have voted for Clinton.
The Democrats, especially the Clintons, and it hasn't been that much better under Obama. Look what's happened to Detroit under Obama's watch. Now, it was not Obama's fault, but no, Democrats have done nothing for Black America, not really. They pay a bunch of lip service, and they want to preserve welfare benefits, thinking that that's a solution. But you're making client culture there.
Exactly. And even worse, you have people, the whole Flint, Michigan stuff, people like, it was a Republican and something. Like, you do realize the Flint mayor is the Democrat. The people about their local EPA or whatever, majority Democrats. And a lot of them are, I'm like, if I wanted to blame someone, I wouldn't go for the top because he's busy.
No, you just blame government. No, you blame government. Our government. This is the thing. Like ANCAPs, anarchists, and libertarians. Like the most annoying thing about them is that when they talk about our government specifically, a lot of times they're very, very much right about how inefficient and full of shit it is. But the problem is they don't address why it's that way. And the reason it's that way is largely because A, corporate influence, which is B, fed by partisan politics. Like we recognize the two parties. We recognize these two parties as the only legit two parties we need. We have people like Jill Stein, who I can't stand, and Gary Johnson, who I think kind of an idiot. But they're not even being allowed to go into the debates. We're being told that the only choices that we have are Trump or Hillary. And even when you suggest voting for a third party, like you said, people are like, oh, you've thrown away your vote. You're not voting against the person you think is less, is like more evil. Fuck right off with that. That's not what democracy or republics are supposed to be. And so that's why, can you really be remotely surprised that government at almost every level is hopelessly fucked beyond any necessary consideration? No. It's because it's all predicated on this notion that like one of these two parties supposedly has the right ideas, and that we have to choose either for them if we can be real stupid and we can really delude ourselves, or we choose the one that's not the one we hate the most. And so, of course our government's broken as all fuck, and maybe anarchy and a voluntary society looks appealing as an alternative. But the reality is that reform of government, reform of elections, and especially reform of public perception of what parties actually mean, those right there are the reforms that would actually make for a functioning government society if we did them right.
Yeah. It's and oh man, I would love because I forgot to give you the information of the dude I hang out with, Shane Killer. I keep forgetting to give you the information because I think y'all two would actually have one hell of a debate about volunteerism, libertarian, and how governments are and
Well,
how this
apparently
type of
I
thing.
got blind, drunk, blackout, shit faced with that guy T on Sargo for a while.
Yes, I loved it. Was
I
probably
don't
one of the
I don't
best.
know. I mean, I'll be honest and I'll say it on the record here once again. I have no recollection of that last hour. None. I woke up in my chair and the hangout window was still open, but everyone else had left. So yeah, I passed out clearly either on stream or afterwards. And yeah, I mean, here's the funny thing: I have no real recollection, but I'm pretty sure I'd stand by everything I said.
Yeah, it was a very, very interesting stream. You had to look at this stuff. I was like, dang, this is really good. And the
The first
stream,
2 hours were golden. They
oh
really
yeah,
were.
and I, oh,
Third
it's
hour, I can't say any which way anything for certain about that.
I was like, yeah. But but that's the really is the meat and potato. What we need to have that discussion, and every time you have that discussion of like maybe we look at this, it's like in any type of election, be it the this in the presidential or local elections, which sadly majority of the youth, especially around my neighborhood, um, only like 30,000 people vote in the local elections to get the local people who actually, the
How many
mayor,
how many eligible voters?
eligible I think 5-6 million
Thirty
around
thousand
here.
out of 5 or 6 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of shoddy. But then again, I mean, can you blame them? Over and over and over again. What kind of choices are they given? I don't honestly, I don't vote. I'm going to vote this. I went to vote in the primary and I voted for Sanders. And I will go and vote actually in the general, but only so that I can vote against Maggie Hassan because she's our governor and she's running for the Senate and she's a nanny state enthusiast. And I really don't think we need that in the federal government. And Kelly Ayotte, who is a Republican, but she's a New Hampshire Republican and she's actually proved to be rather benign. So I mean, when it comes to voting for the president, I'll probably just chalk up or write in Vermin Supreme, who's a friend of mine. You know who Vermin is.
Oh yes, I saw the videos and such. Oh, and I'm gonna be voting for Gary Johnson. I still hope he gets in the
I'm
debates.
tempted for Johnson, man, but the thing is like he's
Yeah,
like, oh, I'm against mandatory vaccines. I'm like, well, you sound about as dumb as fucking Jill Stein saying that I ought to pay reparations. So,
oh gosh, but it is something. He does some
Vermin
stupid
wants
stuff.
to give you a pony, dude. He wants to give everyone a pony, and when he's asked, "Won't you have to raise taxes to pay for the ponies?" he points out, "No, they're free ponies." See, you can't. I mean, find a way around that. Find a way around that, and if you can, go ahead and vote Gary Johnson. Throw your vote away. Otherwise, you could vote for actually both the future and the past of this country. He's the only presidential candidate who's willing to actually federally fund research into time travel. And he said he will go back and kill baby Hitler. And he was asked, he's like, he pointed out, he's like, I'm the only presidential candidate who will go back and kill baby Hitler. And he's like, they're like, well, Jeb Bush said that he would do it. He's like, no, yeah, Jeb Bush said he would do it. I'm saying I'm going to. So, I admire that kind of conviction. I want in my president a man not just with a fashionable headwear, but I want a man who's able to actually articulate the vision and dedicate himself to it. But we didn't get that with Obama. We didn't get that with Obama. We're not going to get that with Clinton or Trump, but we will get that with Vermin Supreme.
What the problem is, if you go back in time travel, we won't even feel it. Because again, it's the whole timeline thing. Because if he did kill Hitler as a baby, well, somehow, some way, Hitler will still be here. Because you
understand, this man is running for president, right? I'm pretty sure he's thought this through. This is where trust. This is where trust in your choice comes in. Like, you know what? We're supposed to trust the candidates. Well, I trust Vermin Supreme. I know that when he kills baby Hitler and he develops the latest and greatest in giant hamster wheel technology, so that when the zombie apocalypse comes, it won't be the apocalypse. It'll actually just be an energy revolution. When that happens, I'm willing to back him when that happens.
Well,
And honestly, too, I'm gonna send this stream to Vermin, and don't be surprised if like clips of your stream end up as like campaign propaganda on his.
why not? I don't care. I
No, it's
need
great.
the
Then
I
I
need
can
the
no, I can
subs.
no. If it happens, I can actually probably invoice him for him. So that's great.
I need the subs anyway. Uh, but when I but when I look at the election, and the election is just seems to be going well, it's going around the way where it
It's
is right now,
fascinating.
and
It's fascinating.
I
It's kind
was
of like, I mean, it's kind of like watching. I mean, name any object someone cares about and then light it on fire. Watching that happen.
just
Kind of like that.
watching a dumpster fire. But when you see what's when I look at the say debates and such, that's what I was rooting for Gary Johnson to get into. And funny enough, I was watching the Rubin Report with that guy Key, and he was talking about he didn't agree with most of Gary Johnson's appeals, but he said he wanted the ideas of his or Jill Stein's to be in the debate. Like, I have no illusion of them winning, because let's be real, it would take a miracle beyond miracles if Gary Johnson was going to win. Because if he did win, if he somehow did win, I doubt he would actually do anything, because he's seen what's against the war on drugs. And let's be honest, it would be like they'll just wait him out, be like, okay, we're gonna stonewall you on that idea. We're like,
Well,
no.
you're still assuming that if he got into the debates that he'd actually get time. I mean, take the Democratic debate. I mean, how often? I can't even remember his name. What was
Jim Webb.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Webb. No, it was the other one. It was
Oh,
Hillary,
no.
Bernie, and
Jim
what's his
Webb
face?
and let's see. Gosh, he was the mayor of Baltimore.
Yeah,
She's
Tim something. Right?
let me see. Look at this.
No.
Not Tim Kaine, but
No.
let's see.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing is like he was like the primary contender. It was Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and this guy. And I can't even remember what his fucking name is. And when he was in the debate, he didn't get to say a goddamn thing because nobody gave a fuck. You get Jill Stein and Gary Johnson up there, they're going to put Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump next to each other. And then they probably about fucking 12 feet from each podium on the left and right. They're going to put Gary Johnson and then Jill Stein. It's going to be like, Jill Stein, somebody said something about healthy air. I'm going to give you about 4.5 seconds to say something about that. Then I'm going to go over to Hillary. Okay, go. We need a green economy. Okay, that was enough. Hillary, what do you think about this point? That's how that debate would be like tax policy. Donald Trump, you've said you'd have a tax policy that did X and Y. Well, here's the thing. Gary Johnson, what do you think? Well, government is. Thank you, Gary Johnson. But Donald Trump, what do you think?
Yeah.
No,
by the way,
get him into the debates to just show how fucking much of a farce those things are.
it was Martin O'Malley.
Martin O'Malley. See, now that name's familiar to me. I've heard of him from somewhere. Didn't he do something once? Oh, I can't remember. I don't know. Maybe he owned a Starbucks in my neighborhood or something.
It's other than that, I was actually pulling for like Jim Webb, because he seemed like a dude who would actually get things done.
Wears boots and drives a truck. Wears boots and drives a truck. And, nobody's a Democrat. He's not some sissy Democrat though. He's a boot wearing Democrat.
Yeah, and funny enough, I remember his what his like it was his end of his that was his quote from like a debate that he said, I was like, he was in Vietnam. Says, only thing I would like against me was like some dude I threw a grenade at. I was fighting in Vietnam. He ain't here no more. And I'm like, you know what? I would vote for this dude.
He knows that when you throw a grenade at a man, he's dead, not around anymore. He seems to be more with it than most of the candidates these days. So yeah, you know what? At least he knows you throw a grenade at a man, you die.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, I could see that being respectable. It's better than like I didn't know if I just kept all of the Secretary of State's emails on my goddamn iPhone that like somebody could get at them. Wow, who would have thought that would have happened? But I'm with it. Don't worry, I'm with it. Have you seen this frog? This frog is terrible. That's like, oh, welcome to our election. Honestly, I want to see like the trolls of 4chan and 8chan and just the Twitter trolls and all of our friends in shit poster land. I want to see like them make Squidward into such a regular meme that in the next election, for no reason whatsoever, Squidward is all of a sudden associated with some extreme political ideology that he has nothing to do with, and that will be the defining characteristic of the 2020 presidential election.
And
I want
hopefully
Squidward. Yeah.
And hopefully I will finally end SpongeBob, but I doubt that's going to
No,
happen.
never ends SpongeBob. SpongeBob is wonderful. We can continue having SpongeBob.
But then you're gonna have poor Squidward just be like he's gonna be like now it's gonna be the member.
Squidward maybe like radical environmentalism. They can be the new batshit crazy sort of alt-right that we've got now. It'll just be like, yeah, Squidward represents people who want to burn down timber factories and fucking blow up factory farms, and even though no one's doing that, they'll be like, this is a sign of the alt-left. So like everyone's sick of President Donald Trump, and they're like, all right, well now we're gonna primary the shit out of him, get a fake Reaganite in there again. It'll be great. We can pretend like nothing's changed. And the alt left has risen up, and this Squidward character is representative of it. This is why you see him in Birkenstocks in the memes all the time. The memes that the kids are using to communicate their messages of hate of capitalism. This is what we need to put an end to. It's the alt-left's problem. Now, excuse me while I go have a seizure.
Oh, by the way, his full quote is this is right here. It says, I was talking about rocking on the enemy's most proud to have made. He's like, quote, I have to say the enemy soldier that threw the grenade that wounded me, but he's not around right now to talk to. So he's like, dude, I take people out. So I think Jim Webb. I honestly think he's that reasonable crazy.
Jesse Ventura gives us the Chuck Norris presidency. You know?
Yes, I think he would have been that crazy to knock down Trump. I mean, that was the secret weapon. It wasn't Hillary.
No. The best election we honestly could have had, I thought, before Rand Paul turned into, a cuck, as they say. No, I mean, like, here's the thing. Donald Trump is a batshit crazy fucking, bloviating shitheel who's running for president because he thinks it's just his turn. And Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, is a bloviating shitheel who wants to be president because she thinks it's just her turn. And these people are so far removed from the real world, both of them, that there's no point in listening to them. But Trump does in his defense, he does represent a populist rejection of the establishment. And I think the best general election we could have asked for would have been Trump versus Sanders, not just because I'm pretty sure Bernie Sanders would have won, but also because, both of those people were rejecting the establishment. Now, Sanders cucked out and fucking sold out. And like, I think, mayonnaise is a wonderful sandwich, and we need to vote for Hillary. And now, excuse me while I go buy an Audi.
And buy a big old house and to retire.
A big old fucking house. I already told him I want my goddamn money back. I've never given money to a political campaign in my life. And now, just like when I pay rent, I'm paying someone else's mortgage. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to get more. When I look at these issues, I'm like, we're going crazy. It seems like, but then again, have we always been this way, or, are we just, No,
we just get more sophisticated in being fucking retarded. And that's not just our society, but humanity in general. Every great culture peaks and then drops off, and then another one pops up to do amazing shit. But the truth is that everyone ultimately seems societally wide to succumb to the depraved depths of their own natural retardation. It's just it's just too easy to be fucking retarded as a whole society, and especially when you get really big and sophisticated with it, and you can communicate 24/7 and not actually have to think about what you say before you say it at all times. Can we be surprised that we end up with someone like Donald Trump as a major presidential candidate?
Yeah,
no.
Former trust he is a WWE Hall of Famer. Going to be president and such, which
fucking retarded. I mean, honestly, even I don't give a shit. Some people honestly, the neophytes were like, no, Trump's gonna be great for the country. Okay, it's the political equivalent of I remember my first beer, and it's And yeah, I mean, you know what? It from all objective standards, the fact that a man like Donald Trump with his persona is able to get it's not a condemnation of Trump. It's a condemnation of our society. That's something that we think is leadership material. A
Yeah.
bloviating, blowhard fucking businessman who's just a media whore and who will just do whatever it takes and say whatever it takes and be as outrageous as he wants to be. And hey, I'm just a reality TV personality. That's what we're electing. And Hillary Clinton is just an exceptionally more boring and more grating reality TV personality to most people.
Yeah, and this is how. Well, it just keeps getting more and more insane. It gets more crazier and crazier, and when you look at these type of issues, and just when you look at Hillary or Trump, um, I think the best outcome in if Trump, which he seems to be pulling away, but then again, he might do or say something stupid, so Hillary would get back into it. He might have said something stupid while we were streaming, so but he might pull away and win this one. I honestly think he would be one term. I think he would be a
Oh, yeah.
one-term guy.
He'd also be like the final coffin nail in the casket that carries the GOP into the ground.
Yeah, and I honestly would not be surprised. They're like, you know what? We're like, we'll banish him to the point. We'll give him on his like we'll placate you on the whole Islam thing, but everything else we're gonna lock you down.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no, I mean,
we're not gonna. We will.
Well,
That's
that's
the deal.
that's the true danger, I think, to Hillary. Like with Trump, even if the GOP takes the House, right, and the Senate, or holds control of Congress, like Trump's agenda is going to get as bogged down as any other. And it's going to get bogged down probably to a greater extent because a lot of Republicans, even though they'll support him and they'll back him and they'll endorse him, they don't fucking like him. And there's a difference between running for office and being in the office. And now Hillary, the thing that makes Hillary dangerous, though, is that she is the skilled political opportunist and political operative to where, like, she's got a cadre, a small army of people around her who are fucking very talented at getting legislation pushed through. She's been doing it for decades. And she would be very effective at pushing her agenda through. And Hillary's agenda is goddamn terrifying. Trump's is too, but Trump's a bloviating fool who will just probably pick a cabinet out of a hat. And what he'll get accomplished through Congress in his one term, well, he makes the GOP itself a relic in history. Probably pretty benign compared to what a lot of people think.
Well, yeah, I mean, GOP parties come and go. I mean, let's be honest. It would if the GOP finally dies. I mean, I know there's some people out there like Nick Lepsey is like, yeah, they're like Birdman rubbing their hands together, just like saying yes, it's about to be that time. And now basically they're like, they're finally. I think they'll probably dump Gary Johnson. I think he'll probably be. They're gonna dump him. He's gonna be dumped, and I don't know who else is gonna take it up.
Elect the harmless-looking postman you may have seen a couple times. That's he's so vanilla. He's like would you like to nominate this software engineer for president? Why not? Dude, he looks harmless. He's like my dad's friend, the guy who comes over with 5 beers in a pack. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But no, I mean, there's no Gary Johnson is not remotely appealing, and especially now we have Hillary Dynasty Clinton versus the Donald Trump, the literally Hitler. I mean, there's too much fucking celebrity pizzazz going on there. Everyone's freaked out or excited for dumb fucking reasons. And then you got Gary Johnson who's like, I'm a libertarian. That's adorable. That's wonderful. Good for you. Good for you. You probably went to a nice school, didn't you? I can tell. You have manners. You're a very nice boy. Jill Stein is like, I believe we need a green room. That's lovely, dear. Somebody get her foam helmet, please. She might hurt herself. She's out in public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just going to. I feel like I think we've slowly gone to the insanity, and it's just like it's just like, well, Just you're like, well, we just can't get like if you're just like, well, we can't possibly get any worse. But
You
it
can always
seems
get
to
worse. That's the
be
funniest thing about it.
it's
Worse,
always
it's gonna get more hilarious.
yeah, it is. It's gonna get more hilarious and even funny, even worse. But here's something about the whole Hillary being sick and everything else. I want this is probably not going to happen because she seems to be back on her feet at this moment. But if worse comes to worse and Hillary does go down, who are they going to get back into? Are they going to finally tag in Bernie? They're gonna like say, hey, like, hey guys, I'm back. Come on, the Bernie Bros, baby. We're taking it to Trump. Just would you welcome him back if he did, like,
I mean, like, honestly, like if suddenly like Hillary Clinton dropped out of the race, or like was like maybe like her species came down from Alpha Centauri to take her back, something like that. Or like maybe the manufacturers recalled her because like the human emotion circuits were malfunctioning. And like, no, it's supposed to be believable, and as you can see, it's just not believable. If that happened and all of a sudden we got Bernie versus Trump, yeah, I'd probably just go vote for Bernie just because fuck it. Like, you know what? If he's gonna like, I'm gonna go fight. I'm gonna go and fight for a $15 minimum wage because that is a political revolution. And you get there.
He'll mention his billionaires and millionaires. And
well, not just that. No, I mean, like, here's the thing. People were like, well, how could you vote for a hardcore communist like Bernie? I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I'm kind of okay with capitalism these days. Yeah. But like, if Bernie Sanders goes to fight for a $15 minimum wage and he ends up basically negotiating it through Congress to be 10 or 11, that basically just means that like, half of the country has to catch up to where the other half already is. I mean, you go down to Massachusetts, I think the minimum wage there's $10.50 or something. You go to Vermont, it's like $12, and this is just New England. You come to New Hampshire, it's like $7.50, and it would be a pain to a lot of businesses, yes, but it would just be like it would be the same kind of pain they had in the '90s when they bumped it up to $7.50 in the first place. So it's yeah, he'd get that done, and maybe we'd get somebody in there who's actually going to say like we need to like legalize marijuana.
yeah.
Like, yay. Wow, it's like we finally got to our own birthday party.
5
years late. 5 years late. Yeah. 10 years late. I'm going to celebrate my 23rd birthday
by buying
a month ago when I turned 33.
Yeah.
It's fucking retarded. But I mean, here's the thing. If I'm going to have a presidential candidate who's going to say that, you know what? Fine. Go to office. The rest of your agenda is probably going to get stalled in Congress anyway. But if somebody's going to say we need a national public health care system and we need to legalize marijuana, guess what? Unless you say something far dumber than I can imagine, you probably got my vote, especially compared to a guy like Trump who's like, I'm going to build the best wall, the greatest wall. I'm going to get somebody else to pay for it. No, I mean, any problem. I'm just going to do the best job. I'm going to do the greatest job. What's it entail? Well, you'll see. I'm going to do it. It's going to be the best, the greatest you've ever seen. Oh, all right. I'm sold because I'm barely paying attention. I'm waiting to get back to see what my fucking, I need to get back to fucking Call of Duty here. So I don't have a lot of time. So what are you're going to do the best job, the greatest job you are? That's fantastic. I want to do that. The other guy's like, I got a bunch of complicated policies. I am going to get about 20% done on my first 4 years in the presidency. 20%. I'm gonna do that. Like, oh, it's kind of taken away from my me time, Bob. This guy just says he's gonna do the best and greatest job and get other people to pay for it. I kind of like the sound of that. Can we do that? All right, you go sit down, old man. But yeah, other people like me will go and vote for him because like, why the fuck not?
Yeah,
so, yeah.
And
honest select that it's Hillary Clinton. So it's like, here's the thing: do I want to burn down the house with Donald Trump, or do I want to keep trying to patch the foundation before the house burns down anyway with Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, well, Trump is going to burn down the house anyway. And even better, it might not even be Bernie who gets it. It could be like they just say, you know what, Tim Kaine's already here, so we'll just put Tim Kaine versus Trump.
How's it going, harmless uncle that I never really cared to know? Oh, you're not really related to my family, but I keep seeing you at things because you got nothing else to do. So you show up at my family functions. That's cool. Like Tim Kaine. Oh, yeah, Tim Kaine. Like, I'm a Democrat. What does that mean? Exactly what you think it means. Oh, all right. Yeah. Pretty straightforward with that. I appreciate that.
Oh gosh, I mean, Tim Kaine would be eaten alive by Trump. He wouldn't even be alive. I mean, they might have to put like, I honestly they might just like they might have to like screw it, put like Joe Biden on there or something. They'll put anyone up there, be like, well, who's gonna like? It'd be like the like random people. Like if after Trump kills, he just like they bring people back in or something. Or they just like they hate Bernie so much they're gonna just put random Democrats over and over again. Just like
we're gonna enter the right code at what looks like a fucking Nevada solar power thing. We're gonna go down to the basement. We're just gonna like, crack open another pod and get another Michelle Bachmann out of there. Michelle Bachmann. That's how she's born. Just fully grown in pods, somewhere below the desert, fully baking. They can't have the brain too functional, so they leave it mostly functional, and then they give it a bunch of things to say. Now, I've got to go take a piss, so can you entertain your audience for like a minute or two while I do that?
Oh, yeah, sure, man. Well, that was interesting. But also, people, is that, oh, gosh, you have Michelle Bachmann, who, I don't know if let's see if she's still in Congress somewhere. Let's see. Michelle Bach. Let's see. Is she still somewhere in Congress? No, she's not. She left. She was in office recently. She wasn't a representative anymore. She lost it last year to Tom Erner. She was that dude. I'm looking at Wikipedia. So, okay. So let's see. Senate House of Representatives. He wanted to take office. Let's see what stuff here. Let's see. State sovereignty, abortion, minimum wage. He wants to take that out. Let's see. Oh, this is something. He said drunk driving, which I always thought we all were cool with drunk driving being bad, right? I mean, okay. He says, but yeah, Tom Ember sponsored a bill that would shorten the period of license revocation for driving under influence and refusing to take a sobriety test. Additionally, taking through suspected drunken drivers currently face reevaluation before they go to court. Emmer's bill would have delayed reconvictions until after conviction. He says, well, and they said the reason why they support this bill was like, says because pre-conviction reevaluations penalize drivers for proving they're guilty, which, okay, fine. That sort of thing. Like, hey, if this person was driving drunk, if he is or isn't, yeah, let him, that sort of thing. But mothers against driving say, no, we don't have that. Let the dude drove drunk, he was disorderly and everything else. You lose his license. Yeah, I earned that back. So, yeah. And pretty much that's the end of that story. Then again, this is Wikipedia, so. Oh, Colonel Tatsu. He says, you suppose Flash would try to warn Batman about Hillary and Trump? At that point, well, probably about Batman v Superman. Which, by the way, oh yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm back. No, I mean that was a bit longer than I thought. It was one of those like endless pisses.
Okay, I was looking at Colonel the chat, like Colonel Tsai or whatever. I can't pronounce names. It says like suppose Flash would have tried to warn Batman about Hillary and Trump. I'm like, I don't know, probably. Maybe I don't know. Probably he had like minute of time, like he couldn't say anything when he was whole Batman. It's like, what would he say? Like Trump and Hillary are gonna be like the last two nominees. You gotta stop them or something. Put money in Bernie Sanders, man. Don't let something like that. I don't know, but it is interesting, He says he's actually noticed that I'm a wrestling fan. Oh yeah, it's because I have a big gold belt on my like avatar right here. It's like what pro wrestler.
No, that could just be some bling, you know. Maybe you've got like a mostly white audience, and they just don't want to sound racist, but they are kind of racist, so they make these.
Pro wrestling. Let me tell you something. It's a bit of a very interesting history of that. But yeah, if I had to build a pro wrestler president, I mean, technically Trump did. He was a part of WWE history. He was a part of WrestleMania.
I got a question. I got a question here. So, like, you know, you're a dedicated wrestling fan, right? But like, if you had your choice, you could just sit down, have a beer, and watch something. Would you rather watch a pro wrestling match or an MMA match?
Actually, funny enough, I do like to watch a good MMA match, but a good pro wrestling match with the one with a story and reason why it's to me. I actually like to watch those. So.
Yeah.
MMA.
You like the theater more than the blood.
Some kinds. It depends on my mood. If it's like, okay, I'm in the mood, I'll watch say UFC or Bellator or something like that if I'm in the mood. Mostly, and you know, if you really because trust me, I'm not really in love with the wrestling. I mean, I just finished watching Lucha Underground, which does have more theater elements to it, rather than just have like two dudes just okay, we're just gonna have a fight now and have the best like 500 flips and everything.
What's funny, like, well, it's funny because I know like a lot of people. I notice like the real hardcore sort of UFC fans are the ones who like, you know, the like middleweight, lightweight competitions, because that shit's just a fucking like crazy, you know, active fucking fight. And the heavyweights, like, you know, people will tune into like the heavyweight boxing championships. Like that's a big one, right? But it's like, you know, these two massive people are just smashing each other mercilessly. They're big and heavy and they get tired quick, and like it's not as fast paced. But you get an MMA match between like a fucking like a welterweight or a fucking middleweight, and yeah, that's like fucking kicks and punches are flying, and then before you know it, it's a goddamn like grappling match. It's ground and pound. And it's fucking insane.
Yeah, and you know, unlike but then again, it's about it's when you look at wrestling as well, you have to know the people there, who they have good chemistry with, someone who has like good pacing, the story being told in the match, all these other type, the whole, the ballyhoods of wrestling.
What's some? I mean, I never really got into wrestling, but I mean, which is it more? Is it more choreographed, or is it just like a series of moves that they both know how to complete and they sort of improv with it?
It's choreographed most of the time, 90% of the time. You do have someone try to do a cool move and stuff like that, like
improv shit.
Yeah, if things go right or wrong, you need someone to like, okay, crap, do something quick. When they do something and when a move goes wrong, they say crap. If a body like if I put a move from the top rope or something goes wrong, they're like, okay, we go work on the back or something like that. If a move doesn't go the right way, they do a little bit of improv. When I look at wrestling nowadays, if you if you want to bear with me, there's a little bit of a rant. It's become more sport, trying to be more of a sport, trying to become more realistic, which
spectator sport.
Yeah, trying to be like more like the UFC instead of the things that brought it to the dance, which is sad because in this world we have right now, and the one thing we are so into, I mean, like, talk about Batman v Superman, the Avengers, the whole comic book explosion that has been, the fantasy and such, which to me,
we were all waiting. Look, we're in our 30s, so it's kind of thing. I've imagined this, and tell me if you haven't too. If you could go back and tell your 10-year-old self what your future's like. I mean, I realize I could go back and be like, all right, you've lost count of how many X-Men movies they've made. They're making every other comic book that you never read too. Batman and Superman fought in a movie that you recently watched that you brought your 8-year-old daughter to. Oh, and by the way, you have a smoking habit that requires a charging cable. Oh, and there are no flying cars, but you'll understand why, and you'll be thankful.
Oh, yeah. Me, when I was a kid back in the day, I was in so deep with the Monday Night Wars of WCW and WWF, and I would
waiting back in the day? Like, were you waiting for the X-Men movie where?
Oh, I was waiting.
And everyone knew Patrick Stewart had to play Professor X. There's no one else who could have done it.
Oh yeah. That I watched Blade when it came out, which was great. Batman 1989, Batman Returns. I was there for most of all like the crazy superhero stuff, that sort of thing. And I would probably break my 10-year-old self heart because I was so big in WCW back in the day, and to
Then
tell
whatever.
him to tell him what would happen to World Championship Wrestling, I honestly think it would just break his heart because it would. Let's just say, look up. Just say if you ever have time, I know you probably won't get. Just read the books, like say Death of WCW and all these type of stuff. But the fall of WCW, and see how basically it died because of terrible story writing, the egos, and basically just people who just wanted to be canceled on television. In fact, it was still getting high ratings, and they canceled that thing. That's how much they did not. I think it was. Was it Wake? No, Jamie. I didn't see Jamie Keller. I think it was. Let me gotta look that up. Let's see. Keller. Uh, Keller WCW. Yeah, it's and yeah, people are like, man, this is great politics. So now we talk about the history of professional wrestling, about how Jamie Keller pretty much killed off WCW, and yeah, and not only that, but pretty much all of the great like canceling the most successful cartoons as well. Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, Freakazoid, Superman the Animated Series, the new Batman Adventures, Asteria, all canceled. They canceled under his watch. Um, and
Being somebody who's worked with film producers and such, and met with I've met network executives and shit. Yeah, no, they're not always the brightest. I mean, keep in mind, like, it doesn't matter even who did it, but there was someone in this world who canceled Firefly. Someone did
yeah,
that. Yeah, that right there proves that production, producers, executives, they're they're the most flawed human beings. They're as flawed as anyone. They don't just make mistakes; they make massive, massive, unforgivable mistakes. The kind of thing, it's like the scarlet letter which haunts you for the rest of your life.
pretty much so many great shows, so many interesting things get canceled. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, and I could go all day talking about this, but you'd probably be like, "Oh God, why is he talking about this fake sport? Why does he have so much passion in it?" And
Well, I
such.
mean, no, listen, dude. I don't get wrestling. I really don't. I don't dig it. I don't watch it. But I mean, those who are really interested in it, it's a mix of action and drama, and like you say, there's stories, and I've had friends who are into it too. I know that, like, there's things to follow, and it's a mix of conventional fictional narrative entertainment and professional sports.
Yes, it
That's what it
is.
is. Yeah.
It is at its core could be a very fun live action version of a comic book, anime, or whatever. That's what it is, and it's been missing.
Massive, impossibly sculpted people. Basically, just like a whole host of immaculate bodies, often with like very strident characters and personalities, almost like video game characters. And yeah, they're battling each other over fucking slights and insults. Someone
Yeah,
says something, and then all of a sudden, there's this epic entrance on this big vaulted stage
yeah, pretty
where they
much.
just walk out with a microphone. Because I know every time, like, I call someone out in my life, like in the world, right? Whenever I call someone out and I'm going to call them to task, I have a microphone and a sound system just ready, just to walk out and be like, "Oh no, I know you didn't just say that."
It
Yeah,
is, and it's very fun.
it's like an MMA. It's almost like it's almost like an artificial MMA telenovela.
Yeah, and it's at best is that fun wrestling, and you have your stuff. I mean, you talked about it at length because you seem to be a fan of the X-Men, and
Yeah, I grew up. I'm an old X-Men fucking, like, that was like my central comic book up until I got into like the Image comics
poor you
back in the 90s.
I
Back in the 90s.
Yeah, I know. I never really read most comics. The most thing I know about comics stuff was the the DC animated universe. I was raised on that, and the X-Men animated series.
No,
Having
it's
that
funny.
types
Like,
of
what you remember? You remember how epic the X-Men animated series was when you were a kid?
yeah, and how it ended,
And
how did
have you
everything else.
have you revisited it? Have you revisited it in your adulthood to look at what you were watching?
Oh yeah,
And it's so terrible.
yeah.
It's
I
so
understand
bad.
what they
So
did.
bad.
Yeah, I understand what they did. I mean, it
But do you remember?
just.
Did you ever watch? Did you ever like? Were you ever into Spawn?
Oh, I love that, and I need to
Okay.
get the
Did you
DVD of
watch
that.
the HBO? Did you watch the HBO series?
Every chance I get. I was like around 12 years old. Me, my
Oh yeah,
brother
yeah.
tried to sneak and watch it. It was great. In fact, I think it won an Emmy, I believe.
Yeah, I
Let's see
mean,
if it
if it,
did.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, with that though, I mean, Todd McFarlane actually, and I remember
Yeah,
them talking about it in comics, and I remember like, like I think, yeah, they made a Savage Dragon cartoon that was short
yeah,
lived, and it was fucking lame. It was fucking lame. I mean, Savage Dragon in the comics was a brutal fucking character. Like he'd break people's faces open on the top of a bar, right? He was like basically like a crookedish cop. And that was a fucking like the cartoon was just a fucking abysmal failure. And Todd McFarlane said he's like, this is why I held out when I wanted to do a Spawn animated series, and why when HBO showed up, I knew it was the right way to go. Because they
yeah.
wouldn't give him a fucking talking dog sidekick.
They were,
It was
and it was
dark.
actually, it was like the first real. I mean, yeah, I saw like the Shaquille O'Neal version of Steel, and I was like, oh god, that was terrible. But
Yeah.
this was when I looked at this one, I was like, this black character who I did not like. I was like, holy crap, this hero who is ties between heaven and hell. This, and he
Mhm.
walks this weird line is like this black character was this badass soldier, and I was like, wow.
Yeah,
Now
like
then again,
Silver fucking mercenary. I mean, well, I remember that though too. I mean, I do remember being young and like, noticing, like taking note. I'm like, wow, because I knew Spawn is like the fucked up guy in the mask, right? But then it's like when I found like when I read the series and when I watched the whole thing, I was like, oh wow, he was black. Oh shit.
yeah, he was a, this very interesting character, and I just when I look at the just all these type of like everything I see about this you know, oh gosh, Spawn and who else? God
Well,
dang, I
well,
had.
here's the thing. Here's a funny thing though. A friend of mine actually just mentioned. So like Spawn was, do you think Spawn maybe sort of set the ground for Deadpool to happen? Because the thing is, Deadpool existed when Spawn did, but Deadpool
Not
at the
really.
time.
I think it
No,
was
wait,
like
hang on, hang on.
Deathstroke. Okay.
No, but think about this. Think about this though. Because Spawn at the time, like Spawn came out when Deadpool was already a character, but at the time Deadpool was just this kind of boring side character. He's just this mutant mercenary guy. You know, he was like a B-level character. And then he got reinvented into just this main indestructible garbed character who's just torn up and he has to wear this mask and shit.
Yeah, I
I kind
could
of wonder.
see.
Well, that's the thing, though. Yeah, and Spawn also. I mean, keep in mind too, X-Men and all that shit. Prior to like the rise of Image, when Image Comics came up, and then Malibu came up, and I fucking hated Malibu Comics. But like Image Comics, when they came up, like they were like, we don't need the fucking comics code insignia. We don't give a shit. Spawn's gonna kill everyone he comes across. And then you got Deadpool, and like Deadpool, it gets reinvented as Deadpool that we have now. And what does he do? Yeah, he kills everyone he comes across. DC was actually trying to mimic that too with Batman when they broke his back and they introduced Azrael. Remember that?
Yeah, I did well violent side. And I honestly think maybe I'm crazy. But when you have Superman go
You
down,
crazy, man. You
Superman go
crazy.
down, you got Batman go down, you had like Green Lantern going and stuff. I thought they were gonna shift to this like new extreme version, like say of a Justice League of like say Azrael, and you have Steel, like the Eradicator, all these type of guys who are just like we'll step up, to be this like this new version of Superman and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
My dad actually got the comic when it first came out. Because that was actually my first comic I ever read. I
You know
believe.
what though? Actually, I just thought of, you know what I think maybe the catalyst was?
Hmm.
I think it might have been Gambit.
Gambit.
Yeah, well, you think about like in the Marvel universe, right? Like, I mean, the Avengers were always the pure heroes. You had Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, you know, etc. Right? But with the X-Men, like Gambit was like kind of when Gambit showed up, Gambit kind of did serve as like a turning point in the X-Men franchise. Gambit was a thief. He was a liar. He was a card shark and a cheat. And he was like, this dirty New Orleans character who he was unpredictable. He wasn't a hero. He was kind of, you had Wolverine, the first anti-hero who's just being a hero because he is Wolverine. But then Gambit wasn't even trying to do the right thing. Gambit was always just trying to do right by Gambit, and people fucking loved that character.
Yeah, and it's one of the most interesting, his betrayals, everything. And I wonder, I'm like, man, you look at what, Gambit or, in X-Men, the thing I always liked about it was the interesting themes. But the thing when you look at the superhero movie and such, what I mean, do you honestly, maybe it's just me, but I honestly wish that First Class was the second movie. Because as much as I loved it,
the second movie, I didn't like the third.
I liked
the third sucked.
Yeah, but but I think I wished they could have gone more depth with the friendship of just a whole movie. Because it was
no, they did that in First Class. The First Class, like we got to know.
Yeah,
Magneto and Xavier.
But yeah, it's just like, it was a rush. Like, okay, now they're enemies forever, but friends, enemies, whatever. I'm like, I would have had the build to have them try to take down, say, one like rogue person from like what was that? The villain. I don't know what what was that again? I can't remember. It was the black. What was that? I gotta see what was.
Sorry, what are you asking again?
That goes like X-Men. Let's see, First Class villains. I gotta see. What was it? The who are they fighting? The Hellfire Club.
Yeah, Hellfire Club. Yeah,
I was like
the beginning of the Hellfire Club.
Yeah, like I wouldn't like say have like take that dude out first, and then they start going like at the end of the movie they start looking for people and such like that, and then First Class starts when they take on a new revolution, like a bigger, more dangerous type of Hellfire Club or something like that, and then have their breakup and something like that.
Oh, you wish it'd been stretched out like that.
And again, I'm more of a longer story type of guy. I always try to do the long and stuff, and then do Days of Future Past, which I think was a pretty good movie.
I enjoyed it. Well, Days of Future Past, I enjoyed. Yeah, it was a pretty good movie. I actually just watched Age of Apocalypse. And now, yeah. I remember well, see, the thing is like Age of Apocalypse, because they redid it in a cartoon. Well, they were gonna redo it in like one of the cartoon series, not the original cartoon series, but
X-Men with the like Wolverine. Wolverine and X-Men, which I love the fact that Wolverine was so popular. It's like Wolverine and
that's the funny thing. That's sort of the old fag versus new fag thing. Because if you read if you read X-Men back in the day, it was more of a composite cast. Wolverine was one member of the X-Men. It wasn't like he had his own comic too, but like in the X-Men comics, Wolverine was just an X-Man. He was just another character in the cast. And Cyclops had a much bigger role, and Beast was a fucking central figure. And I mean, Colossus, for fuck's sake, Colossus had a massive story arc where he went over to Magneto's side. And and with the movies though, when the first film came out, the first film really was Wolverine's story. It was the X-Men were, you were following Wolverine as he came into the X-Men.
And Hugh Jackman to me is Wolverine. I don't care.
Oh, he killed it. Fucking killed it. He took the role, owned it, redefined it, and everyone was more or less really actually happy because he fucking killed it.
Yeah, but the problem is,
even in the shitty Wolverine movies that he's done, we still like enjoyed watching him play Wolverine.
Yeah, because he has that type of charisma and character. Hugh Jackman is just a great actor, and personally, when I look at the Wolverine, the character, he's interesting, but there's other great characters in X-Men. That's what I loved about First Class is that they introduced Wolverine for 1 minute and then gone. They introduced everyone else. It was great. I
No,
love
wait.
that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. First Class. He had a cameo. Then Days of Future Past, he was the center again, and then in Age of Apocalypse, he just
Cameo.
again. No. Yeah. No, it was a brilliant cameo though.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Days of Future Past, and I loved how Apocalypse was looked at
You mean
first.
Age of Apocalypse?
Yeah, Age of Apocalypse. He was good at first, and he really felt that this huge, powerful weapon. I love the fact he actually took down all the nukes. By the way, it was like, wow, he just
But that was interesting. But here's the thing. I mean, well, the one thing I felt with Age of Apocalypse is that it was all very rushed. Like the whole. And I
yeah,
don't mean it felt like it was rushed production. It felt like they were really trying to push the story forward. And the thing was, is if you know the story of the real Age of Apocalypse, that was that was 2 seasons worth of comic books, I believe.
yeah, pretty much. Should
Yeah,
have
I
been
mean,
a volume 1 and a volume 2. I was
Yeah,
like, it was like an
Wolverine.
event.
Yeah, Wolverine had one hand. Magneto was the leader of the mutants who were trying to oppose Apocalypse.
Apocalypse killed everybody. And
Yeah,
no-
like he had Cyclops, he had Strong Guy, and like he had like half of the X-Men on his side. Apocalypse had them under his wing, and then you had Magneto and Wolverine both leading separate factions. And I'm pretty sure the Age of Apocalypse stemmed from the excess like time disruptions from Days of Future Past when Xavier was killed and the Sentinels took the world over. And so they did
by the
follow
way, I love that. The Sentinels who there's this huge government project that's basically destroys how much of collateral damage, and no one and the humans are like, oh, that's okay.
No, they weren't like that's okay. No. I mean, the real story of Days of Future Past was the Sentinels took over because their primary directive was to protect mankind. So their best way to protect mankind was just to dominate mankind, exterminate any threat to it, and then contain it and manage it like in that, nightmare fucking apocalyptic Orwellian fucking thing where a machine is running your world. And then they also start persecuting and murdering humans because they determine that mutants are humans and that certain amounts of humans actually just have mutated DNA. So it became like sort of an ethnic cleansing story in its own.
And remember, boys and girls, the comics would just sell to kids because that's what you want to just give to like 10-year-olds and such. Here you go, little Jimmy. Here's a story about ethnic cleansing. Have fun.
Well, I mean, consider where X-Men started, dude. I mean, here's the funny thing. Like, I got into X-Men because when my father, he's 65 now. Now, back in his like childhood, he broke his leg and he was laid up in a hospital all summer. And so my grandparents they started bringing him popular science magazines, but because those only came out once a month, they started bringing comic books too. And they kept them. Now, I have in my possession somewhere in safekeeping an X-Men comic from before the X-Men had their own comic. It was Amazing Tales by Marvel. And it was Cyclops, Marvel Girl, who is Jean Grey. You had Beast, but he wasn't blue. He didn't have fur. He was just this large scientist guy. You had Iceman, who literally looked like a fucking human snow cone. And I think that was it for them. And then Magneto had Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and Toad. And it was the classic 60s style comic where, like, it opens up with the heroes saving the day at a school that's on fire and they save the children. And as they're driving away, these firemen are saying, well, gee golly, I'm real surprised that people hate mutants so much given how awesome, how great those X-Men are. They saved all these kids, and then like Magneto and the League of Mutants tries to steal something. It was classic comic book shit, and they stopped them. And that was like old school X-Men. But even in that, it was basically they were anti-segregation messages in that.
Yeah, and I loved what I loved about Watch X, but maybe this is back to anime series. But the Apocalypse voice was just even when he's like you can buy deal, but he had that presence of like you're not gonna I'm gonna fuck you up. And that's just a plain fact. He's just gonna fuck you up, and you ain't gonna do nothing about it. And that's what he did. He was a force of nature. That's how powerful he was. And that's what I loved about Apocalypse. And he was somewhat like that in the movie until
Well, he was no.
Phoenix.
You want to know what the best fucking comic battle would be? And it's one-sided. There's only one winner. We know who it is. But Apocalypse versus Doctor Manhattan.
Oh yeah, that would have been interesting. I mean, a person could legitimately do all these things versus a guy who can.
A person who can alter physical matter at his will versus somebody who can actually control their own molecular structure.
Yeah. So, in fact, or worse, what about worst thing? It might look like he win, but he might just take over Dr. Manhattan or something, use his molecular structure to try to just fight him in that type of battle. If I put science into it, but what I've
got a comment. No, I just had a comment coming in from an outside chat saying that Apocalypse would win. No, Dr. Manhattan would destroy. Dr. Manhattan would just look at Apocalypse and turn him inside out.
Yeah, but again, it would be an interesting fight.
But the thing is, both of the parallels are that like they're. It's funny because like with Manhattan's fucked up nature, we'll talk about this later. With Manhattan's fucked up nature, you've got, he's so separated from mankind that he just doesn't know how to help anymore. He just doesn't know. He doesn't feel like he really even belongs here. He has no connection, no real anything. And then you've got Apocalypse, who's so powerful that he's just above mankind. To him,
he is a god, and they are just ants.
And the both of them, yeah. Well, the both of them in fair fashion. If both of them existed, both of them would be gods. They would be gods. So, like, yes, I can rearrange the reality around me, and I can destroy you with the blink of an eye. And I can. If I decide to do that, it doesn't mean anything to me because you were so far beneath me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I loved about Apocalypse in the movie. Like, he saw the humans just like this, dead. He just snapped his fingers. They were like that when Magneto was about to go crazy, and he just swished with his hand. He just killed them all.
Yeah.
Like, that's to me like. Yeah. Then again, I just see the whole power. Then that just like the final battle is like. Seriously, he could do this to humans, but yet he can't do that to mutants because
no, it was weak and it was rushed. It was rushed.
I honestly think
they cram as much story in this we can. Holy shit! Here you go. Hey, climax. There you go. How do you feel?
Yeah.
You ready for the next movie yet?
Mm-hmm. But I do really. I think there is still life in the X, but they're gonna do another one. So
they're gonna keep making them, and honestly, rightfully, they ought to. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, they're casting a Fassbender as Magneto was brilliant. It was well done. He played the character to a point where, like, honestly, like there are some points in which I remember reading the comics in the '90s. And I felt that Fassbender gave Magneto more humanity than he had throughout a lot of the comics.
Yeah, and
he had a fuck ton of humanity in the comics, but like Fassbender just brought it to life right in front of you. There you go, boom.
And it makes the Marvel universe a lot cleaner because when you have the whole Avengers and we all love those guys, but X-Men, fuck them. It's just so confusing, they accept so many other heroes, but yet the X-Men are villains / pariahs because...
Well, this is one thing you have to give the MCU over the DC thing, aside from the fact that DC is fucking struggling with their film franchise because they're mostly shit. And all of their films have failed except for like the Christian Bale Batmans. I mean, Batman versus Superman did well, but it was
Suicide Squad they made over It made more money than Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And
Well, no,
I loved, and I
they're
actually really
well, they're
enjoyed the
unfucking
Avengers.
themselves. I still say Affleck was a terrible choice for Batman.
Oh,
But
I thought it was good.
no, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I thought Affleck played the role well, but I couldn't get past the fact that it was Affleck playing the role, and that's because only Affleck has spent the last decade and a half desperately trying to play any superhero comic character he could because he's just a massive nerd. It's the same thing with Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage played what is it, Big Daddy in Kick-Ass because he was originally being looked at to play Superman.
And
Way
if you
back.
have, do you see the documentary based on the whole film thing? You should look that up. It's a documentary based on Superman. The plan, like Superman Lives. It's really good. A really good documentary about what would happen, what the story was. Because
Well, you know what? Consider this though too. I mean, fucking like Affleck played the actor who played the original Superman just so he could be a part of it. Affleck is Affleck's a fucking true fucking comic nerd. He desperately wants to play a decent comic role. And him playing Batman, honestly, like he was a little too fucking emo moody for me, but that was really the writing. And I think Affleck's biggest problem is that like he's just getting shit writing and shit roles to play for these things. He's got the jaw, he's got the look, he can play a superhero, no fucking problem. But it's just
the
like
writing.
Green Lantern was a terrible, not Green Lantern, fuck it, sorry, Daredevil, terrible movie. Green Lantern was also a terrible movie. Daredevil was a terrible movie. Colin Farrell was wasted. Ben Affleck was wasted. Jennifer Garner was pointless. And then it's like we're just gonna put Michael Clark Duncan in as Kingpin just because. Why the fuck not? Why not? Hey, let's do that.
Hey, Clark Dunn did play the role, and let me tell you something. I like Daredevil as it was a guilty pleasure, but I'll take that over Elektra. God, I hate that movie. I hated that movie. I hate that movie, and I always will hate that movie because it just was so. Oh gosh, they wasted. You know, they actually wasted Bob Sapp, who was a former offensive lineman, and getting back to the wrestling thing, was a former IWGP New Japan heavyweight champion, one of the only black guys to ever held that belt. And you know how long he was in that movie? About like 4 or 5 scenes, and he got crushed by a tree.
Well, I met David Batista, right?
Oh yeah, I saw the interview. Very good.
Afterwards we geeked out about acting because, dude, honestly, like it was funny because like someone even asked him, and you saw the question, like, how has your wrestling helped your acting? He's like, no, it actually hindered it. And we geeked out about acting method for like 20 minutes, like just chilling out on the Hoover Dam.
But yeah,
I haven't described it like that. Now I realize it's actually a much cooler experience than I think of it as.
Yeah. It's
but I mean,
and when I look but you know what I'm saying though, it's this whole when you look at the superhero stuff, it's and funny enough, the X-Men and all of these stuff. It's funny how I actually looked at the video. It was like Renegade cut. Took a look at Captain America: Civil War, and he talked about. Did you see that movie yet?
Yeah. I like that one.
Yeah, I did. Me too. He talked about the whole political side of it, like how should governments have like say like the Avengers, should there be a government term entity or anything like that? And I would be like, part of me would say I see the point of Iron Man. It's like, hey, you need someone to say, hey, monitor and do all these type of these superheroes existed. You're like, you want to make sure that they're not going to go take over the planet, at least something like that. But then again, I'm more like the libertarian side of me would be like Captain America, like, how long before it would be like, like Wet Works or something like that, sending me 10 out to take out, say, people who like, who are like what happened we talked about earlier.
That entire storyline though too was written post 9/11. Oh, and that was actually that was Marvel critiquing the surveillance and security state that we were setting up, and Captain America was murdered. He died.
And yet the comic book world said, "Oh, but Iron Man's side was right the entire time, even though he was acting pretty much
Well, it's
like."
saying that now because Marvel has been taken over by social justice cretins.
Oh yeah, but yeah,
Honestly, I'm
it's
all in favor of a 15-year-old black superhero, but it doesn't need to be Iron Man or Iron Heart. You know,
oh
that's
yeah,
fucking lame.
yeah.
That's lame.
But
Like gender
I'm
swapping Wolverine, gender swapping Thor, and then race gender swapping Iron Man. It's like, oh yeah, you're doing such a service by just fucking sad sack catering to a population that you think is like waiting for you to give them that. When really, like, if there is a genuine demand for black representation, for female representation, for the gay or queer representation, all of that, create good characters for those identities.
And not only that, and I have no problem with Ironheart or whatever. Make interesting stories. Make them a part of make them have interesting stories. Like people will say, well, funny enough, I like Batman and such, but to me, I really start caring about him when I read the entire Hush storyline. It came back in 2003, and so on and so forth. You have a great storyline talking about the past and everything else around that character, how they keep going. That to me that's what you can do. That's what you should do. A character that connects to you on that fundamental level. It doesn't matter what type of stuff. Heck, Luke Cage has been in interesting stories, and I can't wait for the Marvel Netflix series.
Yeah, Luke Cage is. I mean, like, I love Jessica Jones. I fucking loved that show.
I love Me too. I love Daredevil.
Yeah.
I loved
Hey,
all these
Daredevil,
type.
I'm looking forward to fucking Punisher too.
Yeah.
It's just the way they're handling that, the way Netflix is handling the MCU as they're going through it. I love it. And a lot of people are pissed, like, oh, well, like X-Men and the MCU are separated because of this and that. And my thought is, though, is that if you have a world in which the Avengers are saving planet Earth from interdimensional fucking aliens, and then on a street level you have Daredevil and Jessica Jones and fucking Punisher, fucking Luke Cage running around, you don't need it to be also filled with mutants. Like,
Well, they
that's
are.
too fucking much.
Well, the
Too much. No,
Inhumans.
keep them separate. Keep them fucking separate, please. I want to enjoy those storylines separately.
Yeah, but it's funny because people are like, well, they wouldn't make until they talk about Civil War and everything else. What you honestly think, though? Do you think if the heroes like that, or say Justice League or anything else, would you be surprised that the United States government would make something like, say, a superhero team? If the Avengers not going to do it, they would make them themselves, or not only that.
X-Men addressed that in the comics, though, because like when they had the branch off series, you had X-Force, right? And X-Force was the truly like criminal underground. They're illegal. They're being hunted because they're breaking the law and they're making trouble. And then you had X Factor, and X Factor was, that was led by Havoc, and that was a U.S. government fucking X-Men team.
And you had, like, for example, I think there was a Canadian one, Alpha Flight. There was like a Russian team as well.
You had Excalibur, which was British. I mean, that's the thing, is like the X-Men universe actually addressed it pretty well. And then the Avengers universe, they were always flirting with it, and they caught up with it really, really well after 9/11. When it was like, all right, can we press gang those with superpowers into national service? And Captain America's like, no, I serve my nation, by choice, not by force.
And I do think there's real reason, for that. Like, for example, okay, if you want to train the heroes and everything else, fine. If you want to be a hero, at least be trained. Which most people will be for that, because you don't want to have like someone just stumbling and bumbling around and doing this type of stuff. But when you have the whole service, the problem is, like, once you get to the whole government type of thing, you don't know who your real enemies are. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, you're just gonna take these guys out. Just go and take these guys out. It could be like hiding some like secret files, like, for like, take this from Hillary, like she emailed it to like some crazy person or something like that, and you have to kill them for whatever reason. And maybe that's why Harambe got killed. I have no idea, but I'm
sure it is.
But it is something I always like, that because it is like, at the end of the day, the whole When I look at these like hero things, it's what would you do in these type of situations and such? How governments how to do it, because at the end of the day, when Thanos comes knocking around, I don't think the United States, like the Salvic Accords, are not going to stop Thanos or some shit. They like, what's this? It just smacked it around and just ripped the person's throat out or something like that. Because again, I don't know what the perfect answer to that is, because
Well, it's a funny thing. X-Men had a huge alien storyline, and like now they have, the whole MCU Avengers side is the ones like, oh yeah, there's fucking aliens everywhere. Plus we've got
Magic.
Star-Lord to deal with because he's out there actually dealing with the shit.
Yeah, it's something that I always did these crazy thoughts in my mind and such, and but funny enough, about
check the side chat, by the way.
Oh yeah, Apocalypse versus Darkseid versus Dr. Manhattan is he's like Manhattan would still win. I'm like, I don't know. Darkseid, what does Darkseid have the anti-life equation? That's the question. I don't know. Oh, Dr. Manhattan versus Silver Surfer. That'll be something to see. Then again, Silver Surfer will probably be crying because that's what he does. He's not a warrior. He just moans and cries a lot. That's all the comments I read about him. He's just like very emo and sad. He has the power cosmic, but he will sit and cry about it. Then again, he's owned by Fox and in the Fantastic Four, which depressed the hell out of me. Like these movies, yeah, they depressed me because there's really good ideas there. And
Google Hangouts side chat, brother.
Let me just see.
Yeah, I know. You're like, oh yeah, I'll look at the chat. Oh yeah, they got great suggestions. Okay. I know the chat. I love the chat.
I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. All right, I got it. Let's wrap this up. In fact, I gotta wrap this up too. I got crap to do. Dang it! I got stuff to write.
I know, and this was like my like peak of self-awareness for the night. It's like, all right, I'm talking about comic books. I go on forever. I could really
Me
go
too.
on.
Yes, and I gotta stop too because I got seriously. I have a review I have to finish. I got homework. I got things to do. I got tons of stuff to do. But let's wrap this up quickly. Is the world's going to hack? Is there any positive thing?
Yeah.
Is there what?
Yeah, there is. It's all funny as fuck. You just need to not. Just try not to care too much. Try not to care too much and watch how absurd it all plays out. And as you watch that, if you can honestly appreciate absurdity, you will never be disappointed in our modern world.
That's true. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna end it here. Thank you so much for Wizard of Cause. He's awesome. And go plug your channel right quick because I wonder if people are still listening.
Yeah, well, for anyone who's still listening, if you want to, go over to Chilling Tales for Dark Nights and find my original story of Fear of Atlas and upvote it because I really want to take first place through brigading as I have through the first 2 rounds. And they invite this. This is how the game is played. And if I win, I get a whole bunch of studio equipment. I want more studio equipment, so go and help me.
Yes, you need more. And and hopefully one day you'll finally get on the Ruben Report and to take Dave tasks or something like that.
I got on. We'll get on any bet. Nah, fuck all of those channels. One day, my channel would dwarf all of theirs, and then I'll be like happy to have them on mine.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Go to his stuff, man, and Dixie Tier, peace of love. I'll see you when I see y'all later.